Okay, hi everyone. So I was asked to do a little behind the scenes on how I make my video phases. And this morning I found a video that caught my eye, one that I might ordinarily tamper with. So I'm going to show you how I do a video phase using a channel mixer effect. So I'm also processing the red, the green, and the blue frames that make up this picture, and I'll do my due diligence. I originally found this video on Amy Sedaris's Instagram, and it was originally posted or reposted from this account, Mignonette Takes Pictures. Okay, so here's what the video looks like initially. I really like the silhouette of the goat with its reflection, and the looks like either sunset or sunrise that's reflected in the sand. So I feel my hunch is that it will look pretty nice treated with the RGB filters. So ordinarily a video phase works best, at least when I'm doing them for short durations with very small clips, under 2 seconds usually. And this one works perfectly for that. So I'm going to cut down this video, so it's just maybe one or two of the goat's trots, and I really like this moment with the pink and then the blue. So I'm gonna start at this moment where it looks like the goat is just standing, push it back to the start of the track, the sequence, and then and then put it back to where it's standing. So if I loop that, I just want to see what it looks like. Because the camera is moving, it might not be, it looks okay. Yeah, it's not exactly the cleanest, but it does the trick. And the magic of the video phase is that it starts to make it look like it loops. And before I commit to that, I just want to look at the trot before, which I think I actually prefer. Compare that. Okay, so let's check out this loop. I like this a little bit more. It's also not going to be perfect because it's not a still shot, but I think it does the trick and might look pretty nice. Okay, now the second thing I do, now that I have my clip, is I check out how many frames. I need to make sure I know what the frame rate is. Okay, good. It's 30, which is my favorite frame rate in dealing with these. So this clip is 110. And another little quirk about this process is I usually aim to find a prime number of frames. 110 would be 40 frames. So I'm going to just make it one longer, which shouldn't do too much damage, to 41, making it a nice prime. And this is a hard one to explain, but using prime numbers is great for three-part phases because then none of the clips that I'm about to process will intersect with each other exactly at any point until they all come back together again. So that's why I find prime numbers. Okay, so now the next thing I do is cut this up frame by frame. This is, not the most interesting thing to do, and maybe someone has found a faster way, but I do lots of things in my own hyper manual way until I learn how to do them faster, which happens once in a while. Okay, so this is my base layer. This video one and audio one track is just going to really be a pure loop of itself. I'm going to relabel it with a different color so I can track the starts and ends of each clip that repeats on loop. And so now I'm just going to copy paste it until it's done 41 loops. So 2, 4, 6, 8, 10, 12, 16, 18, 20, 22, 24, 26, 28, 30, 32, 34, 36, 38, 40, 42. And then now I will get rid of this last one because that is 42. I need 41. Okay, so I have my base layer. And this base layer, I'm going to assign red. I'm going to make it slightly transparent. If I kept it completely opaque, you would only be able to see this this track. And now I've pulled up this effect channel mixer, and it shows you how much I can alter with the red, the green, and the blue. And those are the three colors that make up this image. So I'm only assigning it red. Oops. And then I'm going to copy and paste all of that information onto every single clip or every single frame. I need to get my terminology right. The motion, the opacity, channel mixer. So now every frame is going to be in red, which is going to interact with the blue and the green until they align back up, showing you what the completed image is. Okay, so that is the first track. It's about the easiest one to make. Now, for the second one, I'm going to start like normal. Copy, paste it. I will change the properties so that this one is green. Good. And I will. You know what? I'm going to do something first. I just skipped a step. I'm going to remove all the attributes. Otherwise, some problems might occur. Okay, so I'm going to give it the same opacity or the same level of transparency just so that all the images blend. I get rid of red and blue, so now this image is only green. And then I will paste that to the rest of the frames. Should look kind of greenish yellow right now as it blends with red. Okay, now I'm going to start the proper phasing process. So this track, I'm going to take all but the first frame of the loop, paste it, and then put that first frame at the back of it. And I'm just going to repeat that process until I get to the end of the 41 loops, which is when they will realign again using this process. So this is a bit cumbersome, but fortunately this video is under a minute, so it won't take me very long. And while I do that, I'll just explain. Most of my work I post to Instagram, so I think a lot about just the properties of Instagram posts. And one of the really obvious ones is that a video, unless you do like IGTV or I don't know, the story is also slightly different. A regular post, a video is only going to be a minute. So I look for loops that only last a minute, which is why something like Music for Your Inbox gives me the chance of really making something bigger and longer, and also gives me the platform to share it with. Otherwise, I generally work with the constraints of Instagram. And I'm about, I don't know, a third of the way done now. There's no guarantee that this will look good, and usually I choose images that have certain things. Like the black is really great for this processing because it will evenly divide between the colors. Usually with black, it divides into not red, green, and blue, but magenta, yellow, and cyan. A lot of what I understand about this process, I get just empirically through doing it. So I don't have like a very good scientific understanding of it, but I do kind of have some ways of anticipating what it will produce. But all that said, what I don't know it'll look like is the background, because it has that pink and blue blend with the sunrise / sunset that's being reflected. So some of the pleasure of doing this is just to find out what it will look like in the end, and that kind of gets me motivated to these little cumbersome things that I do over and over again in order to produce them. It is possible to take this structure and implant a new clip, and that is actually something I learned recently, pretty late in the game. But I figured I would show you just the real mechanics of this system by making it from scratch. And the other thing that happens when you use an edit that you implant footage into is that the frame rate might be slightly different, the dimensions might be slightly different, so you end up having to do a lot of adjustments anyway. And this actually doesn't take very long, as cumbersome as it can feel, but with under a minute videos, it's not terrible. Okay, I'm done with the second track. So you'll start to see the phasing happen. Gives me an inkling of what it will ultimately look like with the blue layer. All right, and I have one more layer because I need the blue layer. I'm going to do the same thing I just did with the second track with one adjustment. Okay, so I've gotten rid of the attributes so I can start them from scratch just to make sure everything looks right in the end. To get my channel mixer effect. Get rid of red and green, and I'll just give you an inkling of what that looks like on its own. So I'm just going to, so now you see it's only a blue frame. So that's what the track is really mixing with. And then when I put them back together, it makes the original image. Okay, so now I'm going to paste those attributes to the rest of those frames on this track. Should look like the image all again because now all three levels are properly mixed. Okay, now here's the slight difference in how I phase the third track. I don't want it to run at the same pace as the second track or else you won't see the difference. So this one, I do the same process, but now I phase by copying and pasting all but the first two frames and then putting those two frames at the back. And that means that it will cycle through twice by the time they all align again. But because it has a prime number of frames, it will not intersect with the first track that is just itself looping over and over. There are other ways of explaining that that are sort of, I don't know, boring, or I'm not the one to tell you, but I have discovered this in the making of these and in the devising of this system. So again, I just have to do this manually. You know, not a lot of Premiere editors, I imagine, do things like this, where they are manipulating more or less individual frames. About less than a third done, so a little ways to go. Sometimes I turn on a favorite podcast while this happens, though I'm not much of a podcast listener. I'm trying to learn how to get into them. My dad is really trying to get me into crypto and NFTs, which are non-fungible tokens I know very little about because he sees that I'm making a lot of video work. Not sure how I feel about monetizing meme culture, but it seems like a pretty insular thing unless you do it, and I'm the sort of person who learns from doing, not from planning, which I definitely came to terms with this week in making my larger video for Music for Your Inbox, learning how to really deal with resolution, which I hadn't thought much about since I make videos for phones that don't demand this sort of resolution. Okay, we're close. We're close. And then I can see how it turns out, and that will be that. And then I will export the video, and if I like it, I will post it to Instagram. Okay, so let's see what this looks like now that we have all the layers. So it looks pretty interesting. What I like about this one is actually the way it looks like the goats are starting to juggle or something. They like sort of move in a circle when the phases are really out of sync with each other. So yeah, the next step, I would just export this file. If I'm satisfied enough, post it to Instagram and take all the lessons I can from it for the next phasing project. And for this one, it would really just be that idea of a circle that's made from something as simple as a trot. So thanks for watching, and I hope you'll check out my video spitting images, the longer one that I'm making for Music for Your Inbox.